President Trump's replaced leadership of his immigration enforcement surge in Minnesota after Saturday's second fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen by federal agents. Operation Commander Gregory Bovino's out. Border Czar Tom Homan is in. To discuss that and other developments in our regular Wednesday political roundup, we are joined today by University of Houston political science lecturer Nancy Sims and Renee Cross, senior director of the Hobby School of Public Affairs at UH. Nancy, Renee, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is this reshuffling of leadership enough to quell the widespread anger over what we've all witnessed these last few weeks? Nancy?
I don't think so. I think you're going to continue to see protests, certainly, and incidents in that area until it significantly calms down. Maybe the new leadership will do that, but that would also involve working with the local and state officials. And part of this whole quagmire has been the inability of the state and federal governments to cooperate. And one blames the other, but it doesn't matter. They're neither one talking to each other.
Renee?
I think putting Tom Homan in this position, certainly it was a good decision. In fact, I think he probably should have been more intricately involved from the get-go. I mean, he worked for the Obama administration. He worked for Trump's first administration. But he's got a solid record of being, bipartisan or nonpartisan. And particularly because we're going into these cities that are, of course, majority Democratic and have Democratic mayors, you need someone that can communicate with the other side and is not prone to all the rhetoric that we are hearing.
I think maybe we're also, while we're used to the idea of just about everything out there being politicized, when we think of law enforcement, we tend not to think of them as the other side when we're talking about the difference between local and state authorities, state and federal authorities, but that's what we're seeing.
Well, we have to remember that Minneapolis, due to their, previous disagreements with law enforcement, organized differently than a lot of major cities. And they were able to just plug and play their protest network because it was already in existence. It had never really gone away since the George Floyd mass organizing initiatives. And George Floyd was a culmination of incidents that led up to his death. So they were having internal law enforcement issues. So I would say as a city, they're actually more focused and prepared on how to track law enforcement behavior than other major cities may be.
And I guess we should also underscore that so much of the outrage of the last few days is about incidents that were captured on camera, and that is different from how many incidents may have taken place away from cell phone cameras.
Well, and they've trained their citizens to do that, to film the incidents. I don't know if you all saw it, but there was a Uber driver that got stopped, and he was filming the whole thing. And one of the agents outright told him they stopped him based on his appearance. He was African-American immigrant. And then when he started talking, the guy said, "I don't like you because of your accent." But how would anybody know that or believe him if he had not had his camera going full time?
Among incidents we've seen, Renee, last night, a man in Minneapolis used a syringe to spray liquid at Congresswoman Ilhan Omar during an event she was hosting. She was uninjured and continued to speak. The man was arrested. Whatever the liquid was has not been made public, at least so far. Should we, unfortunately, expect more incidents like that in the coming days and weeks?
I think it's definitely going to continue. And it starts at the top. I mean, just 2 hours before that incident last night, President Trump was, of course, giving speeches in Iowa to shore up his support there. And he, even though he was in Iowa, he mentioned Omar and, brought the temperature up quite a bit. If the president does this, of course, other leaders are going to engage in this type of rhetoric that just fuels those people that have differing views.
Let me ask the two of you to throw your headphones on because we have a caller on the line who wanted to respond to some comments already made on the show today. Michael is in Tomball and has some thoughts. Michael, what's your question or comment?
Hi, good morning. I don't think Tom Homan was a good choice to go to Minnesota, to be quite frankly. He's already accused of taking a $50,000 bribe. There is a prison criminal justice system where people leave ICE and get big jobs with all these contract prison systems. So I don't think they have an unbiased viewpoint to go there and de-escalate a situation. And that's the problem. There is no incentive for de-escalation. And I feel that the administration is encouraging these people by putting amateurs at the head of the agency, Kristi Noem, who has no experience in law enforcement, and just taking the marching orders from the party. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Thanks very much for the call and for the comments. Nancy, any response?
I think he and I were closer to being on the same page because I just don't see it making a huge amount of difference in the environment that's happening in that city right now.
All right. What do you see as the potential political fallout for the Trump administration, regardless of what steps the president takes in the coming weeks and months after video clearly demonstrated his administrators were flat out lying about what went down Saturday?
Craig, I watched Kristi Noem live, and one thing, as a person who in my past lives trained public speakers and in particular elected and appointed officials, I watched her in that first press conference, and the poor woman could not stop blinking. And it may not be something other people noticed, but she wears very long eyelashes. You notice I didn't say she has very long eyelashes, but in any case, she could not stop blinking, and that is a telltale sign that you're not telling the truth. And it makes people watching and observing very uncomfortable when any public speaker starts blinking repeatedly while they're speaking. And
I mean, it could also mean you have something in your eye.
Let's be
blunt
it
about
could.
that.
But from an observer, it would be hard for a general audience to observe her. They might not have noticed why they didn't trust what she was saying, but it came across as if she didn't trust what she was saying.
I mean, I'm saying that on the video evidence of what actually had transpired Saturday. That's a separate matter. But in any case, are you surprised that criticism has come the last few days, not just from the political left, but from the right as well, including from Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who admittedly gently, but still called the Trump administration, called on them to recalibrate how they're executing immigration enforcement efforts?
I think that's just a sign that this really is a serious problem, and this isn't something that the Republicans can, distract something else to take people's attention off of this. And it's starting to become a pattern. So, what happened to Renee Good? Okay, we'll set that aside. Now, 2 weeks later, we have this, or 3 weeks later. I just think it's getting to be such a consistent issue that even, again, Republicans and conservative Republicans like Governor Abbott, Senator Cruz spoke out on his podcast yesterday, again, gently. Senator Tom Tillis, of course, is not running for re-election, but he was very blunt about Noem being fired.
We routinely note how voters have short memories about various scandals. And while we are not far from the March primary, we are a long way from the November general election. Will this just be one of a number of fuzzy memories for voters by then? Or do you think this is something that's going to motivate voters 9+ months from now?
Well, at the rate we're living in chaos in this country right now. I'd love to say people will remember, but it matters on what happens between now and then. What next country do we decide to invade? What next topic makes Americans very angry? It's just, even Craig, we made our plans for the show today, and then the Ilhan Omar incident occurred overnight. It's just, it doesn't stop. It just keeps coming. So it's hard to say whether voters will retain it.
Well, so far, public opinion is really tanking on the way President Trump is handling immigration. And you have these high-profile incidents, particularly this last one, that was videoed from various angles, and it appears much more clear than the video that was shot with Renee Good. I can guarantee you that Democrats are going to be cranking out that video come fall to remind people, even if there's other disasters, well, I shouldn't say if, when other disasters pop up. This isn't going away.
Let's turn to some other topics, though, because there is a lot else going on in politics. Back here in Houston, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is arguing the state's comptroller can exclude schools from the state's voucher program based on anti-terror laws. This is in response to a question about whether schools that had hosted events for the Council on American-Islamic Relations or had alleged ties to the Chinese government could be barred from the program. The Attorney General previously characterized CAIR, which is a Muslim civil rights advocacy organization, as a, quote, foreign terrorist organization. What has motivated all of this attention by Paxton on CAIR?
Well, he's running for the U.S. Senate, and he's daily, as best as I can tell, coming out with lawsuits. That's one of them. He's also telling private corporations they can't have DEI programs. I mean, you can't tell private corporations how to run their business. So it's just with him almost daily, a lawsuit coming out. He's running for the U.S. Senate against John Cornyn and using his office wisely to keep his name in the news.
Yeah, he is definitely taking every advantage to show how conservative he is and how anti-terrorist group he is, because he's running in a Republican primary, and those primary voters are very conservative.
But this also, taking us back to the school voucher program, is something that came up in the long debate over whether or not to pass vouchers and send taxpayer dollars to private schools. Opponents of the idea told Republicans at the time, be careful what you wish for, because it wouldn't just be Christian schools that would benefit. Is this Paxton's attempt at an end around to freeze out some non-Christian private schools from this program?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's very interesting, the first round of schools that have been released to be accepted for these vouchers. And they're lots and lots of Catholic schools, lots of Christian schools, and even normal private schools that we're familiar with in our region. I didn't see a lot of them on the list. So I thought that was interesting. But also just want to say about this Paxton, the whole Republican primary is going very anti-Muslim. And I've seen congressional ads that are, I'm going after the Islamic. They won't say the word Muslim. They're saying Islamic. But I've seen it in several congressional ads, and it's a almost reminiscent of post 9/11.
Renee Cross is Senior Director of the Hobby School of Public Affairs at the University of Houston. Nancy Sims is a political science lecturer at UH. Thank you both very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Craig.
you.